Hello, my name is Dr. Caroline Walker and I'm a NHS based psychiatrist and therapist, and I specialise in the wellbeing of doctors and healthcare professionals. I've been making a series of videos about staying well during the COVID pandemic for healthcare professionals, and I just want to say thank you again to all of you who've sent in such lovely feedback about how you found the videos helpful so far. Please do keep that coming. Please email me at caroline@joyfuldoctor.com or pop comments below the video, because it really helps me to know what's helping, what isn't, and whether I should be doing any more videos and what topics. So today I'd really like to talk about the possibility of a second wave. Now, I personally feel as if a second wave of COVID is an inevitability, and I think there is a lot of kind of science and a lot of people that kind of understand that that's going to be the case. That I don't think it's so much a matter of if there'll be a second wave as when there will be, and what that will look like. And so if we look back and we think about what we've just been through as a nation here in the UK and as a world, as a population, it's really been quite an extraordinary time. This pandemic has come along, and yes, we may have always known that was possible, but it still kind of came out of the blue when it came at us. I don't think there were many of us, but proportionately speaking, that knew that this was going to come and be as disruptive to our day-to-day lives as it has been. And so those first few weeks and months were pretty brutal. As human beings, we find that kind of level of change and threat and very anxiety provoking, very stressful, and for many of us that centers into a kind of acute stress response, which is very, very normal. Maybe not sleeping as well, maybe a bit more on edge, maybe thinking about lots of intrusive images about what was happening, lots of maybe disturbed dreams, and maybe reaching for some unhealthy stuff to cope. Maybe drinking a little bit more, or eating a bit more, or taking it out on our loved ones a bit more. And then we've kind of, certainly here in the UK and in other countries around the world, the sort of first peak started to level off a little bit, and there's been a slight relaxing of that kind of immediate threat sense. Not for everybody, but for many, a slight sense that, oh, okay, well, we got through that, at least the worst is over kind of feeling. And then that's left many of us feeling very, very tired, very exhausted, overwhelmed, just like, oh my God, how can I keep going? And because life just didn't go back to normal, it isn't going back to normal, and it isn't going to be immediately anytime soon going back to normal, many of us left feeling then, oh my goodness, like, how are we going to get through? How are we going to keep going through this, and what's to come next? And I think that's really where we're at right now, is a kind of sense amongst healthcare professionals particularly. I've been hearing a lot of doctors and healthcare professionals saying that they're quite worried. They're quite concerned about what's to come next. They're worried about the winter months in those countries where we'll be going into winter. They're worried about the sheer volume of patients that will be coming through, the second wave potentially being bigger. And yes, we have a little bit more preparation this time around, and services may be set up a little bit more to deal with it, but it being a sense that it may be really quite challenging still to come. And I'm hearing a lot of doctors not necessarily naming that fear, but behaving in ways that portray that they are quite scared. So maybe not taking their annual leave because they want to save it for the winter months when they know that they might struggle because it's going to be tough, because actually quite often in healthcare those months are pretty tough anyway. And I think we're pretty kind of, we know that those months are tough. We know that year on year it's always quite hard, and we kind of say this is hard, and it's kind of hard to manage without the resources needed, and so to add on top of that normal level of like apprehension about what might be a tough few months ahead is this other extra like stress to be worried about. It's really understandable that many of us are feeling quite anxious and quite stressed again, and so whilst we might, in some respects, our bodies and our minds might be kind of feeling a little bit less anxious as the first peak has come down and we're kind of recouping a little bit, maybe a bit of nice weather, maybe some time off, maybe not. There's also an increase in the kind of anxiety about what's to come. And so I really want to talk today a bit about what you can do to help yourself if you are worrying about a second wave, particularly if you're really preoccupied by it. So I'm not necessarily talking to those of you who might just be having the odd thought about it, because I think that's normal, right? If you're watching the news and you're thinking, oh gosh, is that going to be tough? But then you can kind of stop thinking about it and go back to your normal life. That's probably kind of normal, to be honest. I don't think we necessarily need to like medicalize that level of anxiety or worry, because actually that's understandable, isn't it? You know, there is something real going on here. There is a potential real threat, and I think it is appropriate that we think about that. But who I'm kind of want to talk to is if you are struggling, or if you know someone that is struggling with that slightly higher level of anxiety, that kind of, you know what, I can't stop thinking about it, or I'm really preoccupied by it, or I'm still like buying up all the loads of PPE I can possibly find to kind of protect myself and my family, or I'm I don't know, it's that kind of level of threat where it's really interfering with your day-to-day functioning, where you can't enjoy your life again. Because right now, although we're still in a pandemic and there's still real stress and worry around for many, and there's a lot of grief around and trauma, and for a lot of us actually right now is a relatively relaxed or a less stressful time compared to, say, just before the peak or the first peak, or as things may get in the future with a second peak. This is a relative lull. So right now, if you can at all is the time to be trying to recover, trying to recoup those energy stores, trying to allow yourself leave, allow yourself the space you need to think and reflect on what's happened to you, to talk to someone, to a professional if you need to share about some of the experiences you've just been through. So if you're finding that you can't do that because you can't relax, because actually you're so worried about what's to come, then I think it's really, really important that you get some help with that, because there is things that we can do to help with that. You know, there are things. I signpost quite often in my videos, and I will again today, the Practitioner Health Programme. Practitionerhealth.nhs.uk is the website. They've got a fantastic COVID wellbeing page which has dozens and dozens of free resources, webinars, wellbeing apps, common rooms you can drop into to talk to people in a safe space, free therapy, and for those doctors in England and dentists in England, you can self-refer for treatment as well by the service directly. There's also the free helplines that are out there. You can text 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, frontline to 85258 for support. Text frontline to 85258 for support. If you are struggling, they can help you and signpost you. You can always get in touch with me as well if you'd like some personalised signposting at all. I'd be very happy to help. Caroline@joyfuldoctor.com. But I think if you are at that point, as I say, where you're kind of really, really struggling, do get some help. For those of you who are perhaps just a little bit anxious and would like to do something about it, but don't necessarily think you need the professional support at this time, then please do bear in mind that one of the most helpful things we can do when we're feeling really anxious about what's going to happen in the future is to bring our minds and our bodies back into the present moment. And you can do that very, very simply by simply putting both feet on the ground, wherever you are. You might want to do that right now, listening to this video, and taking a couple of slow, deep breaths. Google box breathing or square breathing. The Marines use it. Doctors and nurses across the world are using it. You breathe around the edges of a box. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Even just doing it there, I feel just that little bit more relaxed. It's a really powerful technique, and you don't have to wag your finger about. You can just do it imagining a square in your mind, and people don't need to know you're doing it. So it's really helpful for like those moments, say, you know, by the bedside when you're freaking out a little bit, or in the middle of a meeting, you know, where you perhaps just lost your concentration or struggling a bit with anxiety. So please do bear in mind there is help out there if you need it. If you are just that little bit anxious, remember to just keep bringing yourself back into the moment. What do you know right now, and what can you control right now? Because that will help you to feel more relaxed and more safe. I hope that's been helpful. Please do get in touch at Caroline@joyfuldoctor.com if you need, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.